I'll have to make a video first bit. Yeah. So, um, where would the subsidy be? Like, what's the size of the subsidy? Like, how could we explain that in when we're talking about it in our essay or question?
You don't know because of imperfect information. So that would be your valuation of it. You don't really know how much.
Yeah, yeah. But let's say before that, when we're giving the first initial point that we're going to subsidize, how can we tell them um this is how big the subsidy should be? So you're very much right in terms of Shagun. You were gonna say something.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but would it be um where you labeled CA? So when I don't know how to say it, but
That's fine. Yeah. So our subsidy is gonna have to be. So what I'll do is I'll put some more of the letters. Um. So I'm gonna call this A. Actually, no, I already used an A. I'm gonna call this Z, and I'm gonna call this X. Right. So the subsidy per unit. So is going to be ZX. So that distance, or you could just say that rectangle there would be the subsidy. Yeah. Um, so that's going to be our subsidy per unit. And like we said in our evaluation, the firm might not know. I mean, the government might not have perfect information to how to value the subsidy, so they might over subsidize or under subsidize. Yeah. State control kind of links to this. So then the government will basically subsidize themselves to run it. Um, and they will just um, run it themselves. In terms of regulating prices, so how could the firm, not the firm, well, the regulator um, regulate the prices?
Maximum pricing.
Yeah, and where would you set the maximum price?
Low equilibrium.
Where is equilibrium? So wherever we said the allocatively efficient prices,
Where P equals to MC.
yeah. So we've said we would want to regulate prices at PA. That's our price for our allocated efficiency. That's the price where all the consumers um have um have accessed, right? Or you could place the price at CA, yeah? And at PA is the productivity is the allocative efficient price, or at CA is going to be the price where we cover all costs, yeah? Then the government doesn't have to um subsidize. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you choose PA, you're going to have to subsidize. And if you use CA at that price, um, there'll be no subsidy. No subsidy. Yeah, are we happy with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
So the other last regulation is that the government could basically tell this firm saying, we want you to ensure that you produce at QA because that's the allocatively efficient quantity, right? And by doing that, then the government will probably have to um, subsidize or tell them to they'll give them a price cap in some way. Yeah. So that's how the government can basically regulate. So an example that we have in um so we have anyone heard of Ofgem or Ofwat?
Yeah.
Yep. So these are the regulators. So what does Ofgem regulate?
Is it electricity and gas?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Ofgem regulate the electricity and gas, and they're allowed to set a price. So they're given a price cap, the maximum tariff that they can charge consumers. And during the cost of living crisis, the price cap was the highest ever been. It was on average around like £3,000, right? Whereas before that, it was like under 100, under like £1,000, right? And that's where the government has basically allowed changes to ensure that one, there's still consumer access, but two, the firm can still stay alive. Yeah. So any questions in regards to what we've discussed with the natural monopoly? Like anyone still have any questions that they want to me to go through? Okay, I'll take the silence as a no. So the next part was basically it was a question that was asked by Teja, which was basically what's the best way to structure analysis on static versus dynamic efficiency trade-off for monopolies? So, first of all, I just want us to go through what both of them are, and then from there we can start constructing an argument. So, could anyone explain to me what static efficiency is, and then someone else explain what dynamic efficiency is?
Static efficiency is both allocative and productive efficiency.
Yeah,
So allocative when P equals MC, and then productive when you're producing at the lowest point on your average cost curve. I mean your marginal cost curve.
yeah.
And dynamic is when the firms they use their profits that they gain to reinvest and innovate.
Yeah. So, it's going to be, yeah, efficiency over time.
To innovate and invest to improve their productivity.
Hmm. So this will obviously affect their productive efficiency, but also um, productive efficiency in the long run in particular, and maybe the creation of new products. Yeah. So the next part, is anyone able to explain to me what, so we're going to talk about the trade-off now. So we have an understanding of what they both are. So now we're going to talk about the trade-off. So, so what's the first trade-off, in particular about, I've kind of given that away, but what's the first trade-off? And explain to me why there's a trade-off. Because it's something that we did talk about in yesterday's lesson.
Is it to do with like profits?
So in particular, we're going to talk about we have static inefficiency in a monopoly, yeah? We can
Yeah,
all
but
agree
as
on it?
in terms of oh, I was gonna say because in perfect competition where there is static efficiency, the trade it like you can't have dynamic efficiency because in the long run they make normal profit. So here they have
Yeah,
static
so that's
inefficiency.
correct in terms of a perfectly competitive market, but we're thinking about it with a monopoly.
So because they can make super normal profits in the short and long run, they uh they can be dynamically efficient.
So
It
yeah, so
choose
we're giving up static inefficiency for potential dynamic efficiency, right?
yeah.
Now I want an explanation from you guys as a collective to why. So why are we s- statically inefficient?
Is it we're statically inefficient because we're charging higher prices?
Yeah.
So P is greater than MC.
So that's the first point.
But
P is
then we
greater than
can
MC, so we're not, so we're allocatively inefficient. Yeah.
I was gonna say, but then we can be dynamically efficient if we then reinvest those supernormal profits that we make into research and development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. Uh,
But because there's no competition, there's no incentive to invest back
yeah,
rather than just like
Um,
having.
there's less choice for consumers.
yeah, perfect as well. We have restricted choice, so also leads to allocative inefficiency. How about the productive side? What's causing productive inefficiency? So what's causing our firm to be productivity inefficient?
Is it due to the lack of competition? So there's less incentive for them to lower their costs. Um, and because they're profit maximizers, um, they would produce at a higher average cost than they need to be.
So they'll just produce at MC equals MR even if it's not productively efficient. Yeah.
So that means that they're not producing at the bottom of the AC curve.
Yeah. There's also
Uh,
one more thing that's causing uh
the regulation.
not so regulation. There's another type of efficiency that we talk about, in particular with monopolies.
X inefficiency.
Yeah. So they're X inefficient, right? And this is because, like we've said, a lack of competition. So there's a less of an incentive to reduce costs, and they're probably going to suffer from diseconomies of scale, right? Their costs are ballooning because of the such a big operation that's occurring because of how big the firm is. Yeah. So overall, what we can say is in the short run. So in the short run, we have static inefficiency because consumers face higher prices, less choice, and a lower output. Are we in agreement for that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Shagun, are you happy with that? I'll take the silence as a yes. So we've obviously made the argument that firms can be they can be dynamically efficient, yeah. So we know with dynamic efficiency, this is what happens in the long run, yeah. So they can be dynamically efficient, and why is that?
Because they make super normal profits in the long run.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So if they make super profits in the long run, they're dynamic efficient. What does that lead to? What's the outcome?
New products.
Yeah. So we get new products.
More like research and development.
Yeah.
Or if they don't invest it, then they'll get higher shareholder dividends.
Yeah. So the other thing is obviously they can with their R&D, they can help lower the average cost. Yeah. They can lower the average cost, improve the quality of the good,
Wait,
and
how
so
would
on.
that lower average cost? Because surely obviously if they're investing into R&D, that's like a kind of it's not like it's a cost, but it's a cost to them in terms of they they have to like put money into the actual investment and like equipment that they might need to use for it.
But so if you're going to make an investment, you're making sure that that investment pays back more than what you've paid. Does that
Well,
make
you
sense?
can hope. It's not guaranteed to.
No, it's not guaranteed, but remember we're thinking about it in a perfect world.
Ah,
So that
okay.
that's your that can be your evaluation how this theory breaks apart. We're
Okay.
assuming that the firms are acting efficiently and rationally, so they choose to invest, right, in capital.
Yeah.
And that capital is going to reduce the cost of production because one, they bought in a brand new machine, right? New technology that basically decreases the cost of producing a good.
Yeah.
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 So we're just assuming. So you made a very, very good and valid point. Is how can we say that it's going to definitely reduce average cost? But we're just making the assumption that it is, right? And that's a very good point that you can use in your evaluation that the the investment in new products might not be guaranteed. So if you can think of a good example, like of when that's happened, then you're onto a really good answer there. So an example you can use is I remember studying this in like GCSE biology. It just sticks in my it's just come to my brain now. So companies have tried to make products to fix certain things, right? Pharmaceuticals. One way they tried to fix was around investing in a product that was meant to stop morning sickness for women. Um, However, they found that so it worked in clinical trials, but it was found to like affect the actual like kids that were the women were pregnant with, and they came up with like rock hard limbs. So that's showing that their investment in new technology may it's come out with a new product, but it's not led to an efficient outcome on society because it's affected society in a negative way, and the average cost would decrease because now you have to pay out, right, for damages to the people that you've trialed this drug on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So even though they're investing in something, it's not guaranteed, and that's an example of how you could use that in your evaluation. So they can be dynamically efficient. So I'll just kind of round off what we're saying. They can be dynamically efficient because in the long run, uh, they're able to generate supernormal profits because of the market power, and their profit maximizing. So this can fund research development, capital investment, which can help lower average costs. They can potentially improve the quality of the product or new technologies that enhance consumer welfare. Um, and the long run outcome is that consumers will benefit from innovation and lower costs because potentially they could lower their prices as well. Yeah. So if we think of real world examples, pharmaceutical companies have invested loads of money into like new drugs that we have now. Uh, we also uh, have like in tech companies, Apple and Google have been able to use their supernormal profits to invest in things like cloud systems, smartphones, AI, and so on. So, um, with a uh, with like talking about this on the diagram, we can utilize this diagram that we drew yesterday on a monopoly and basically say that in the short run, we're going to be operating at the price P and the quantity Q. Yeah. Whereas, like we said, the allocatively efficient point would be here where I've put AE, right? So there's a essentially like a deadweight loss. Yeah. Because we're restricting output and we're charging people a higher price than they need. Yeah. So society's losing out. And then for the long run side, what you could say is that with our dynamic efficiency, it could potentially shift the average cost to the right or down, sorry, and you have lower costs and potentially firms can lower prices in the future. Yeah. So your the last part that you could basically say is um that dynamic efficiency can offset the short run loss for the consumers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
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 So overall, what we can say is monopoly power will lead to supernormal profits, fund R&D and innovation, so we have dynamic efficiency, and then obviously we can evaluate that. Um, so the LRAC will fall. We have new products and technologies and long-term welfare gains. In the short run, um, we're giving up like lower outputs. We have static inefficiency because of allocative and productive efficiency, which is giving us a welfare loss. Does that answer your question, Teja?
Yeah, thank
So how
you.
we'd structure it, or
Yeah, I
yeah,
think you've gone through the points.
okay. Um, so what evaluative points could we talk about then? So Rishi's obviously started off with a good one, which is that um, dynamic efficiency isn't guaranteed because they could one invest in other products. Sorry, not other products. They can give all their profits that they're gaining to their shareholders, and two, what they can do is they can just two they investment in like new technologies or new products is not guaranteed to have a success. Anything else? What can we say about the time difference between the two things that we discussed?
There'll be like long time lags
Yeah.
because investment takes a long time
Hmm.
in R&D to
Yeah,
actually materialize into something.
that's correct.
Could you say that it depends on the type of industry? So like, pharmaceutical industries, um, in the long run, they're more prone to be dynamically efficient.
Yeah. Whereas other firms might not be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shogun, any thoughts? What we could evaluate?
No, I was just gonna say the same point about time lags.
Um, so a question to you to help you think of something. What about, so obviously, with a monopoly, what kind of issues do they face in terms of like government intervention?
Um, like maybe because the government's trying to stop um monopolies from exploiting customers, um, they could like monopolies could have a disadvantage of that because they would have to control the way they're operating in the market.
So how could they control the way they're operating?
Um, they would have to like lower prices.
Yeah.
Um,
Anything else?
not quite sure.
That's fine. No, it's a good answer. I'm only asking you just to try and get you thinking. So yeah,
Yeah.
we could the regulators. Arushi, do you want to say something?
I was just gonna say, like, if they were to regulate, it would be expensive to the government, and the government cannot always like be 100% sure that it's actually being enforced.
Yeah, that's correct. Um, so another element to it could be that because they're a monopoly, they're gonna face quite a lot of strict regulation. So the regulation could cap profits because you could have price caps, profit caps, and so on. So that means that monopolies might underinvest in innovation, which reduces dynamic efficiency. So they're not able to be dynamic efficient in the long run. Yeah. Another positive is that um, so R&D, we talk about being a positive production externality, right? So how could we link that to our evaluation?
I'm not sure, but could you say it would make the market bigger because so if the monopolies are using their R&D for making like good innovative products, then they could develop something like that benefits consumers.
Yep,
Um,
that's
yeah.
correct. Yep.
There's an underproduction of goods which causes like a dead weight loss.
Hmm. Yep. Another thing that you could say is that dynamic efficiency creates like positive spillover effects. So, um, like Shogun said, if the company creates a new product, right? They obviously have a patent or a license to have that product, but potentially it could incentivize other firms to use that idea and create something brand new. Yeah. Um,
Also, for like pharma companies, if the R&D is like beneficial and it actually creates like a new life-saving drug or something, if they have a patent, then they can use that to exploit customers because they no one else can copy their like drug and they can just charge the highest prices for it.
yeah, that's correct. So the government there has a choice to decide how long the patent how long they have the patent for, and um, because if you think about it at the start, the price being high is can be acceptable, but in the long run, it couldn't be, because it's not really fair on consumers. Um, what else have I got? That's it really in terms of valuation. I think we've made very good points. Um, so like real world illustrations, could be that. So like pharmaceutical companies that we said have high prices and allocative inefficiency, but they're able to produce obviously new drugs, vaccines, and so on. So the outcome is that typically the dynamic efficiency is greater than the static static inefficiency, or the dead weight loss from static inefficiency. Yeah. With our utilities, they have high prices and they're typically X inefficient. But the issue there, so this is a good example. There's little innovation in water and energy. Probably the biggest innovation in energy has been smart meters. Yeah. And they're still not even in every single household in the UK. So you can say in this market, static inefficiency dominates the market. Yeah. If we think about another monopoly, Google and Apple, their market dominance reduces competition. However, they are very dynamically efficient because they do compete with each other. And typically, the dynamic efficiency dominates because they're always trying to come up with the best next new idea. Yep. Any questions or anything?
Nope.
Okay, so we're pretty much there for time. Uh, did anyone have any questions or anything that have come to mind during the session or that they had in mind but didn't ask?
Just a question. You
Yeah.
know, when we talk about these like efficiencies and stuff, but we talk about it kind of like briefly, like how do you measure how much like dynamically efficient it's going to be, or how much static inefficiency is going to be, if that makes sense?
So you can obviously dynamic efficiency is quite easy to illustrate because the you can say the firm can be as dynamically efficient as the supernormal profits that they have. Yeah. Um, with allocative efficiency, well, it's just whether they're allocatively efficient or not. Like there isn't in between. So they're either producing here as an example where the MC is equal AR. Yeah. Either they're doing that or they're not. Um, and then same with product efficiency. Are they at the point of the lowest average cost curve or not? So those two things kind of they're quite easy to measure because it's either yes or no. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, thank you.
No worries. Um, but so the only thing I've got to say, I think that we touched upon yesterday, is when you do mention them, it's important linking back to the question or linking back to the characteristics, explaining why. So, like yesterday, we were obviously going on about how um why in a monopoly they're allocatively inefficient. It's because of their profit maximizers, so they're going to produce at MC equals MR, right? And they've got pricing power, so they're going to put the price greater than the marginal cost and so on. There's a lack of competition, so there's no incentive to lower prices. They're going to restrict output, so not everyone has access to the good. Right. So things like that when you talk about the efficiencies to basically show the examiner you understand what you're on about, you're not just name dropping um elements. Um any other questions?
No.
Um yeah, sorry.
No, I was gonna say no.
Yeah. So I've obviously sent this morning the questions for next week's lesson. Um go through the platform in regards to the topic that we're going through, answer the questions the best you can, and or you can have a message in the chat, the questions you want me to go through in particular on the day. And then we'll kind of stick to the same format we did last time. And then I'll put a I'll put a reminder out, but if you get any questions in for the Q&A by Friday, gives me ample time to prepare stuff for the session. But yeah, if that's everything, then I'll see you guys next week. What I'll do as well is I forgot to start the recording of the first part. So I will probably tomorrow I'll have to record me explaining the natural monopoly bit at the start. Um and then it will be a two-parter to this Q&A. So the first part will be me explaining the monopoly, and then the second part will be the second section. But yeah, if that's everything, then I'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank